Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm looking to have some fun in the Open Great League. With the recent Goodra Community Day, Goodra has become a far more common Pokemon to see in the Open Great League. However, with its usual moveset of Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch, I've found that the most common strategy people do with Goodra safe switches is just send in bulky Pokemon, since neither Aqua Tail nor Thunder Punch does a lot of damage neutrally. So today, I'm looking to have some fun. I TM'd away Aqua Tail, and I'm running Thunder Punch and Draco Meteor to see if we can nuke some opponents and catch them off guard. For the team, I have Empoleon on the lead. I initially tried the Shadow version and had some tough sets, but I switched to the non-Shadow version and was able to go positive over the final 3 sets, with Goodra Safe Switch and Wigglytuff in the back. Some things that I like about the team is a lot of teams end up being core broken by Empoleon, especially some of the toxic Bastiodon Wigglytuff teams. But I will say a weakness of the team is it's very weak to a Magnezone lead, and it's pretty soft across the board to Vigoroth. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Goodra Draco Meteoring everything it possibly can in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, right off the bat, we've got a terrible lead in Empoleon versus Annihilate. I'm going to have to switch out of this matchup instantly, so I will send in Goodra. Opponent is farming up energy, and they're going to fire off that Night Slash with the Annihilate. I'm always going to no-shield here. I know I can survive the Night Slash. Opponent is now going to send in Lickitung. And here's the thing about Lickitung. Lickitung can absorb hits from Goodra for days. Aqua Tail, Thunder Punch, but it does not like Draco Meteor. The Draco Meteor connects massive neutral damage onto that Lickitung. They're forced to fire off the Body Slam. I can send in Empoleon, and Empoleon is going to get a very nice Steel Wing farm down, as Lickitung is only able to make it to a Body Slam. Switch timers will be misaligned here, so they're going to be stuck with the Annihilate for a few seconds, so I send in Wigglytuff instantly. The Charms are deleting it, and at the last possible second their switch clock does come up. They are barely able to save that Annihilate, and in comes Cresselia. Now that I was able to take advantage of that desync timer, I'm just in a position where this game is a win. They're forced to fire off 2 charge attacks to knock out here. At -1, even a Future Sight would not KO. They're going to go for the Moonblast. I'm very close to another Icy Wind. In my view, this is a very safe shield, because I can guarantee that I can get another debuff, and then my switch clock will be up, and theirs is still not going to be up. So I can fire off the Icy Wind, send in the Empoleon, they can fire off some energy, but I never have to shield here. This is double debuffed. Grass Knot is going to do nothing. I just have to watch for the switch. In comes Annihilate. I can throw the Hydro Cannon. This will easily pick up the KO. Since they took way too much charm damage, in comes the Cresselia. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. The lead luck not on my side today, as I lead Empoleon into another Annihilate. Opponent is going to respond with Dugong to the Goodra safe switch, and this is a terrible spot to be as the Goodra. Thunder Punch doesn't do a ton of damage here, and now that I'm debuffed, a Thunder Punch will not KO. However, even though it's -1, guess what will actually KO here? The Draco Meteor. Opponent knows they can live a Thunder Punch, so they no shield, and I'm able to win switch. Typically, if it's going to be the Dugong behind the Annihilate, the third Pokemon is Bastiodon, so winning switch would have been instantly game winning. However, this opponent is running a different variant that has Lickitung. Either way, I should still be in a pretty nice position, because with switch advantage, I can absolutely delete Annihilate with Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff actually going to be hit with an Ice Punch here, a rare Annihilate, not running the standard moveset of Night Slash plus Shadow Ball. But now they can send in the Lickitung, and I just get to apply a permanent debuff that they're unable to reset for the rest of the game. The Icy Wind will connect its charge attack priority. They were trying to get that energy off before the debuff, but it's not to be. And now they have no ability to ever farm me down, as Wigglytuff fully charms down Lickitung, and they lose without using a single shield. We get an amazing lead in the next match in Empoleon vs Shadow Abomasnow. Opponent safe switches to Skeledirge, and this is honestly a bit of a tricky Pokemon for this team to see. Due to the fact that Empoleon's fast move is resisted, I have no fast move pressure against fire types. And I could typically send in Goodra, but Goodra is not running Aqua Tail. So I'm going to have to get a little bit creative. I'm going to save some energy on Empoleon, and now I'm going to bring in Goodra. I know that I can live one Disarming Voice. Skeledirge will hit for super effective damage, but I can tank that energy. I don't think a Thunder Punch quite KOs there, so I am just going to commit the shield and farm all the way down. I'm expecting them to bring in Abomasnow, and Abomasnow can tank whatever Goodra throws. But they can't take a Draco. Oh my goodness. They bring in Sableye. Please. Draco Meteor, one-hit KO. Goodbye. Oh my goodness. And now I can send in the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff getting some very nice charm damage. I'm going to farm up, switch into the Empoleon. Honestly, firing the Drill Peck here is a mistake because I don't think I'm making it to a move on the Wigglytuff. So realistically, I should have just committed to the farm down there, but the Energy Ball will make things a bit tricky because they're going to make another Energy Ball. And so I'm thinking, did I just throw this? Because they make the Energy Ball, but the rank 4 Wigglytuff survives on 1 HP and bails out what was a pretty terrible decision to throw a Charge Attack. The tough leads return in the next match, Empoleon versus Vigoroth. Poor Empoleon cannot catch a break on these leads. Goodra save switch, they're just going to chip with a Body Slam and now send in Trevenant. Trevenant, due to being a grass type, resists electric and it resists water. So they have no reason to shield here, except for the Draco Meteor, which connects. Oh, you love to see it. In comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr does get a farm down, and this does make things a little bit tricky. I'm going to let this go as I can survive the Hydro Cannon, but this is actually a Feraligatr running Crunch. Most that I've encountered are running Ice Beam. I'm going to farm up and fire off this Drill Peck. This is a precarious situation. They have a massive amount of energy on the Feraligatr, and here, in hindsight, I should not have shielded this. I should have saved 2 shields for the Wigglytuff and just tried to charm everything down, but I shield, and this is a massive misplay that cost me the game because Feraligatr is going to be able to make 2 Hydro Cannons versus the Wigglytuff, and once a Hydro Cannon lands, I am just in a range where I'm just going to be able to be taken out by the Vigoroth. So they're going to be able to make 1 final Hydro Cannon. That does a lot of damage. They send in the Vigoroth, but I'm 4 off the move, which means they're going to be able to outpace. Body Slam does not quite KO here, but the counter after will, meaning that I fall short of that disarming voice needed, and I will resign the match. We see a great lead in the next match, Empoleon versus Shadow Steelix, and the Steelix is staying in. This is a massive surprise. This means something in back does not like Empoleon either. Although, what are the odds of actually seeing Steelix nowadays? Steelix is basically a relic, a forgotten Pokemon since Breaking Swipe was nerfed. I shield in case they have Crunch, and I'm very happy that I do, because they do in fact have Crunch. I'm going to be firing off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to be no shielded. They send in Annihilate, and I get to send in Wigglytuff. Save switching Annihilate is a bit interesting. My best guess is that it's going to be another Ghost type in the back. They will go for the Night Slash, and they're going to make Night Slash number 2 right before I do get that Charm down. So if it's another Ghost type in the back, the Steelix is at 1 HP. I'm in a pretty good spot here, but it's a Bastiodon in the back. So the opponent is just running a very bad team. AVA Steel. That's the thing. If you lead into something that beats the steals, you're just not going to be able to win the game. So now they're just in a position where they get all this farm with Basti. I can just bring in Goodra, and I'm in a very comfortable position where I can use Goodra to absorb all of the energy, and then I just win the game with Empoleon. They'll go for the Stone Edge. Goodra able to absorb that, no problem. Here, I'm trying to time the move well, but unfortunately the game was stuttering, and it ends up being on alignment, which is, absolutely awful to watch back. I do decide, you know what, I'm just going to let this through, because I can win the game with Empoleon. They go for a Flamethrower, I think expecting me to catch, but I don't end up going for the catch. And because they Flamethrowered, I can now make a Thunder Punch. They commit the shield, I can send in the Empoleon, and Steelix does not have a Crunch banked, so I'm in a very comfortable position. I can just fire off the Hydro Cannon will pick up the KO, and the Steelix is in 2 Steel Wing range, which means that they're not going to be able to get the move. In comes the Steelix, they get Steel Wing down, and Double Steel just does not work if you run it ABA. The lead luck is turning around. Empoleon good lead versus Altaria. They save switch into an XXL Vigoroth. I don't have a great response, so I'm forced to stay in. Wigglytuff gets absolutely crushed by Vigoroth, so you can't switch in a Wigglytuff to an up energy Vigoroth. I decide to tank a move and then send in the Goodra. This is not an amazing spot to be in here. Ideally, I probably should have just sent in Goodra sooner. That way, even if I do lose switch, the Altaria has nowhere to go, so I would have still been in an okay position. But the Thunder Punch will be able to pick up the KO. One downside of not having the cheaper Aqua Tail is if I had an Aqua Tail that I could have fired at the Vigoroth, then I could have made a Thunder Punch versus the Altaria. But I can just put Wigglytuff on the Altaria, and in the back, they have Water Gun Lantern. So I'm in a pretty nice position. Unfortunately, my Empoleon move is pretty useless, but I have Wigglytuff, and as we see, Charms add up so much onto Lantern. So I can shield up the Surf. I go for the Icy Wind. Whether they shield it or not, it doesn't matter. I need to reduce the amount of damage that I'm taking here. I send in Empoleon. They're going to fire off some energy. I'm just going to let this through. They have to bolt to KO here. It is only going to be the Surf. And with a fraction of HP, I'm able to make 2 Hydros. 1 Hydro will not be enough to KO here. If I was running the Shadow, it would have been a lot closer, and I did try the Shadow initially, but the team was just too classy, so the regular Empoleon ended up working a little bit better. Opponent is going to switch out at the last second and send in Altaria. They should only be able to make it to a Surf on the Lantern, and at this point, my only lose con is no shielding the move from the Altaria. So I shield up, as Moonblast would do more damage than a Surf, and then they can bring back in the Lantern, but Lantern is only going to make it to a Surf, and a Surf does not KO. Again, Wigglytuff has some pretty decent bulk, and I have a very high rank Wigglytuff, so we're able to tank the move on low HP, not too low though, and secure the win. We've got a Nightmare lead in the next match, Empoleon versus Shadow Magnezone, and Shadow Magnezone leads are basically just an auto loss for this team. It's one of the areas where the team does fall apart just a little bit just because you are so ABA weak, and even Goodra without Aqua Tail does not do well into Magnezone. Magnezone is going to fire energy, which is great. I can tank whatever they throw. They go for the Mirror Shot, but they do get good luck going their way as they do get the Mirror Shot debuff. The Mirror Shot debuff isn't a super high chance, I believe it's 30%, so a little bit of bad luck there for me. Here's where having Aqua Tail would be nice, because it could have fired off an Aqua Tail, and it would have come very close to knocking out, but I don't have Aqua Tail. I get debuffed again, and now at -2, these Thunder Punches are just going to be doing laughable amounts of damage. My clock will not be up unless I fire off this move, so I'm forced to throw a second double debuffed move, which is just awful for me. I send in Empoleon, but they can fire off the Play Rough, and I'm low enough that a Play Rough will actually KO. So at this point, I no longer have a win con. It doesn't matter what they have in the back, because Azumarill will be able to force a shield from me, and then they can just bring in the Magnezone. I didn't wait my switch clock, but even waiting my switch clock doesn't save me here, because after this Hydro Pump, their clock is up, so they can just send in the Magnezone, and my Charms are not enough damage. They are going to be able to make the Wild Charge, but running an unbalanced team will sometimes have its downsides, and this ends up being, unfortunately, the downside of this team. The Shadow Magnezone lead is basically just an auto loss. We see a bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Empoleon versus Jellicent. Save switch Goodra answer with Toxapex, and this is amazing. Goodra always wins the 2s versus Toxapex, and then I can just put Jellicent onto the Wigglytuff. But for some reason, I try and call a bait, I get hit with a Sludge Wave, and 2 Thunder Punches are not enough to KO because I haven't been in the matchup long enough for the Dragon Breaths to put them into double Thunder Punch range. So for just no reason at all, when I could have always won switch advantage, and then had a really good matchup for the Wigglytuff, I just say, you know what, let's not actually play for switch. So now, I don't have switch advantage, and Drill Peck really doesn't do much of anything to Jellicent. Jellicent is weirdly bulky. Like, you don't really think of it as a bulky Pokemon, but it can definitely take some hits. I can get back in this game, however, with the Shadow Ball catch, so I'm going to farm up, throw a 4, go for the catch, I don't get the catch, and it's clawed in the back. You've got to be kidding me. If I had just won switch, I would have been in a really good spot. I would have had Empoleon on the Clodsire, and I would have had the Wigglytuff to completely shut down the Jellicent. Here the game ends up lagging a bunch of turns. Thankfully, it does not matter, because the game is lost either way. So I can just resign the match after this, but man, that game was so winnable if I just clicked the shield button. We got a great lead and a great switch in the next match, leading the Empoleon into Registeel. They save switch into Sableye. I can bank a Hydro and then send in Wigglytuff to completely crush them. Opponent is going to get charmed all the way down. They can bring back in the Reggie, but Reggie's going to have a horrific time trying to lock on down Wigglytuff. Here, I realistically should have gone for the Disarming Voice, but I went for the Icy Wind to try and mess up their Undercharge, because undercharging is already a pretty difficult thing, and when you're debuffed, it's even more difficult. They try for the undercharge, I make the Disarming Voice, my switch clock's up, and I have a move. So I'm just going to send in Empoleon, because Empoleon, I can fire off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon should knock out the Registeel here. The Hydro Cannon gets no shielded. They live on 1 HP. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Oh no, that is unfortunate. They Focus Blast. In the back is Mandibuzz. They still had play there, but they just decided they didn't want to play anymore, so they will resign the match. We pick up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Empoleon versus Powder Snow Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Opponent makes a nice catch onto Altaria, but they're about to see why Altaria is an extremely poor safe switch. I can farm back up 8 Steel Wings and then just bring in the Charmer, and their Altaria just has nothing it can really do. They will be able to fire off the last second charge attack. They do end up timing that pretty well, as they will make it to the Moonblast, but that's very okay. They're going to have to throw a move, because Unfortunately for their Ace Slash, if they don't throw a move, I can make a Disarming Voice, and Disarming Voice actually does a lot in that matchup. They are going to fire off a move. They're forced to go for the Drill Run to pick up the knockout, but I can just send back in the Empoleon. I have a huge energy head start, and I can apply a tremendous amount of pressure here. I'm able to grab the shield. Switch Clock, not yet up for me. In the back is a Spark Lantern, but this is just an easy win. I fire the Hydro to burn the clock, send in the Goodra. They are completely walled by the Goodra, and they will resign the match. Hopping into the final match, Empoleon versus Azumarill one final time. But they save switch into a Sableye, and you just cannot use Sableye as a safe switch. Wigglytuff is too potent. In comes the Wigglytuff, tanking the return, charming all the way down. They stop tapping, so they clearly just want to get a bunch of farm with the Azumarill. But even so, that's just completely walled by the Empoleon. And here I realized that they actually were so frustrated that they closed their app. Instead of just top lefting, which one can do when one has lost, they just decided to fully close their app. So it's going to take forever to actually farm them down. So I just go for the Icy Wind, I'm able to pick up the KO. And then I end up having to farm down their whole Azumarill. Even if they stayed, there was zero way they could win because Empoleon just crushes Azumarill. And in the 2-shield, Dragon Breath from Goodra is going to crush the Trevenant. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run this team. As I mentioned, I ran the Shadow Empoleon version of the team at the start and ended up with quite a few 2-3s across the 3 sets. And then I did go positive with the non-Shadow Empoleon version. So I do think it is a decent team. Overall, it was more of just once I had hit top 250 on the leaderboard, I just wanted to run something interesting to see if I could catch these players off guard. And I was able to land a ton of DRACO Meteors, which is a lot of fun. Because I find that players, especially at the upper echelon of ELO, tend to be really prepared and very strong against meta strategies, but if you throw something they haven't seen before, then they have the potential of making mistakes, and that puts it in a position where I can capitalize on those mistakes and potentially get wins that otherwise I wouldn't be able to do. So overall, I think it's a decent team. I do think that the non-Shadow Empoleon is a bit better for this team in particular, just because the Shadow version just really needs shields, and Wigglytuff does as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.